Hi, this is David Newton speaking. Running a profitable seminar or workshop or retreat event. Now, kid you not, this is not an easy task to do. It's basically like having a bucket full of holes. There's money pouring out everywhere. So, how do you know what to focus on and how do you know what's going to pay off? Stick with me. This session will cover those vital tips and what to do. Hi. Now, when it comes to planning your workshop, there tends to be two different types of emotional reactions. Some people tend to overspend a fair bit, and that's due to fear. And then some people tend to underspend a fair bit, and that's also due to fear. Depending upon the topic that you've got, there tends to be a bit of, do I look good in this? Or image making. That's a part of the decisions behind running the workshop itself and the kind of outcome that you're playing for with running your workshop. Typically, it can be the case of the clock's ticking along the way, and as the clock's ticking and you get close to those final couple of weeks, and if the ticket sales have dried up, that's when people tend to panic the most. I've seen it happen quite a lot, and yes, I've been there myself. Once you get down to the final few days and you've maybe only got one or two people booked and you're sitting around wondering, what am I going to do here? Or should I bump the date a little bit forward? Or what's going on? And lots of different things can happen. See, you've got all this investment. It's sitting there. The clock is ticking. And because you've got that investment, you're wondering, did I this? Should I that? Did I this? Should I that? You're sort of playing up odds and evens with where the money should go. So here, let me give you a few tips, a few pointers of where you need to look where the money's going. Number one, catering. Catering is probably one of the biggest emotional spends that you've got for the type of workshop that you've got. If it's a 3-day or 1-week event, what do? Where's the event being held? If it's held out in a rural area, in a country town or something like that, might be under no choice but to provide them breakfast, lunch, dinner and even evening snacks, the whole 9 yards as far as catering is concerned. If you're in the city, it might be a different case, but once again, it depends on the audience. If you've got a business audience over here, or is it a relationship seminar, or is it a prosperity seminar? Hey, they're all different markets. They're all going to have different expectations. So, once again, your catering expense may be different for each type of market. But beware, that's another expense, and it needs to be costed into what you're doing. Venue hire. Now, this one can be looked at in many different ways. Venue hire is a necessary expense, but what type of venue could be suitable for your type of workshop, seminar or retreat? That's the big question. Look, for instance, you could be in a big city hotel, or you could be up in the mountains, maybe say at Millwillumbar, renting a particular lodge area with some camping grounds beside it and a few particular motel rooms built into the lodge, if it's a kind of weekend getaway that's suitable for maybe say a relationship seminar, for example. But if it's a B2B seminar and business people are showing up because they want to learn something specific about how to grow their business, you might be in a big city hotel because they have to be in town somewhere nearby or, near to the city itself. So it's a completely different type of thing. So these are considerations you do need to think about. On the other hand, if it's a prosperity seminar, it could be a totally different mix altogether. For example, one of my friends had a particular prosperity type of seminar held in his 2-story mansion. Admittedly, it was a small group. He could handle about 15 people quite comfortably, and he had some outside hired help with a chef and a butler and a few other audiovisual people because he was a photographer. So he did have quite a lot of interesting things, but he was teaching some kind of a mind, money type of personal growth seminar. So it depends upon what you're doing. You've got to be creative and think about the possibilities here, but But be very careful as to what you do pick, because that will also determine who's going to show up and pay for your weekend workshop. Audio-visual. Now, there's a few different ways you can cut audio-visual. You might want to record your event so that you've got some kind of social proof that you run seminars and you're a speaker before or facilitate seminar events. You might want to record your material so that you can splice that into maybe, say, a course that you might want to sell somewhere down the track. Or, like some people, you might want to record what you're doing so that any guest speakers can have a recording of what they're doing. And lastly, something that could also be a way of recording for audio-visual is you might want to have a legal record of the audio and the visual that's associated with running your event, so that maybe the sensitive nature of what you're teaching and how the audience reacts, or if they get up and speak before the group and so forth, and just in case there's any claimbacks, you've got the recording of the entire event, so that any comebacks that come to you, fine. You've got a recording of that just in case you need it. So consider what the audio-visual is for, and consider, can you do this yourself? Do you need some outside help? And price that into what you're doing. So that is either a vital expense or a supplementary expense. It all depends upon your needs. Marketing. Is it an expense or is it an investment? Is what you're doing face-to-face marketing, or is what you're doing online marketing? Is placing an ad in the paper marketing? Is appearing on TV and radio and promoting yourself, is that marketing? Well, it can be a combination of all of those things. And yes, it can be it can appear to be an expense, but remember, it's a necessary investment. So, if you put $1 in, are you going to get $4 back? If you put $1 in, are you going to get $2 back? That's the big question. What's your return on investment that you're getting from your marketing? And do you know what people are responding to and where your audience sits? That's the critical question that you need to know or find out for your own particular topic and your own particular audience. So, even if you don't understand much about marketing now at this point, you either have to learn how to market your particular event, or you need to hire some outside help and do it quickly, because running a big workshop, you can't leave that to chance. You need to tie down all the points of the cushion as much as possible so that you know where you're heading and you know what you're doing and you know where the marketing dollars is going to get the type of result. So these are things that are absolutely vital for you to understand. Even if you get a whole lot of people interested, are you going to be able to sign them up? Will they buy from you? Will you be able to present it in such a way that's interesting for them to buy? So marketing is a very vital one, and it probably hinges on quite a lot of the other different expenses or investments that you have in running your particular weekend workshop, seminar, or retreat event. So once again, not to be sneezed at, but needs careful, calculated decision making, and at an executive level to treat it like as though you're investing in the longer term and the short term for your business. Pick your poison well. When people do come to me about running their workshop or major training event, probably one of the biggest things that a lot of people do is they're chewing their fingers by that point. And it's probably because they have a lot of emotion invested in particular types of ways how they want their workshop to run, and they can't see how they can get that from the type of marketing that they're doing or the venues that they've currently seen, and they may have not priced in a few different options at the early stages. So what I've got next is a particular session on how to use an Excel spreadsheet that I've got, which will explain how you can actually look at your expenses and your revenues and look at it all on the one page, and as a guide to see where you're going. So let's just move on to the next section and have a closer look at where the dollars and cents actually go. Okay, there you have it here. Essentially, I've broken it down into a few parts. We've got the participants over here, so you can just enter into these light-coloured squares what figures you need. I'm working here on the assumption of a smaller group, and a few people have also booked in at a a full fee, but a large portion are booked in at the early bird fee. And of course, you've got a few guests, which might be promotional type people, or people that could be your guest speakers, but they're attending a fair portion of the program themselves. Over here, the registration fee, early bird at $19.97 and the full fee at $24.97. Over here, we have a merchandising, which basically could be a coaching product, or it could be some kind of additional course that's beneficial to your particular group. So that figure times 30% of your total attendance numbers gives you this figure over here. So that could be another different way of looking at it. Now, of course, you do have some expenses coming out of it, and this is where you do need to keep a lid on or know what you're doing. Obviously, if you're promoting an event just once in a while, these figures may be relevant, but if you're promoting all the year round for a whole lot of other different things, you might already have a database and maybe some people on a wait list. So this can basically be look through the eyes of how you're actually going to promote or when you're going to promote. If you take the whole year to promote the event, well then obviously, if you take the whole year, then your figures may actually be spread out over a long period of time, and you may be actually covering the costs for that marketing through other events that you're running throughout the year. So it may actually be down to a cost neutral or very near cost neutral type of basis. The other thing is too, you've got some venue expenses which do need to be included into it, including that of, I've got down here on the price here, guest speaker experts, and I've just put in an arbitrary figure of $5,000, but you may get some figures there, particularly if you're flying in and out of town expert. So consider that to be the case. Catering, now that one's a wild card type of thing. So I've just allowed here $300, so $100 per day over 3 days, that's $300. Multiply that by the number of people you got coming along, and presto, there you've got the figure. Audiovisual costs, once again, how long is a piece of string? And room hire, that's another one. And once again, there are many ways to slice the to slice the apple on that one. Total extras, total expenses, that will come to a figure. Then you can take out revenue early bird, revenue full, merchandise average sales, whether it's additional courses or coaching. There may be even sponsorship that you could add into this. So somebody might be paying some advertising to be there. Maybe that even might be your audio visual or some particular promoter that needs to have access to the similar course. So that will give you a total inbound revenue here in this case, 59.6K. Total expenses, we got 25,000 in expenses. Net profit, $34,690. So you're looking at there now. Obviously, there is a fair bit of hours and money and time invested in getting this particular show off the ground. So you do need to consider what your hours and your time is invested in such an exercise, because that's all a part of your overhead, actually. So work out those items, figure it out, think it out very clearly and carefully what you're actually doing. I will provide a link where you can join up to my email list and download this success planner in the process of the early email to get a hold of this particular Excel spreadsheet, so you can use that for yourself. So consider doing that, and once again, keep an eye on your figures. Try not to let your emotions get a hold of you, as they usually can do with running a very large event. And just remember that if you're going to work at this kind of level, you need to operate mentally at this kind of level, that you're expecting to and dealing with customers at this level and how their buying patterns are. And only you know that if you know your particular target audience really well. If you know them very well, then maybe some of the marketing costs might be a little bit lower because you've already got a hold of all those people. So consider that. This is one way how to look at it. So what did you think of that? There's a link in the description box below to my website. So once again, you have to join up, and you'll get that as one of the emails that comes down to you, which will be the Excel spreadsheet. So please join up to my email list to get access to that Excel spreadsheet. Now, the thing I've got, which I do need to ask you, is what is your overall goal of why you're running the workshop? Why are you wanting to do it? And why are you wanting to do it this way? And why are you wanting to do it now? Because these are the critical issues that you need to sort out as to where the money goes, what your workshop will actually look like, and what kind of experience you're wanting to give the participants that come along. They're buying the experience as well as the knowledge and the networking. There could be a range of different things. So before you actually go on, answer some of those questions for yourself. If you need any help, just write it in the comments below and I'll see what I can do to answer any questions you've got, or make any comments about what you feel is right on the money situation with running a workshop. And before you go, look at this video. This video here will help you with the next part of the planning process for your workshop. So move on to that and look forward to seeing you in the next video. This is David Newton speaking.